Hi, this is Mike Rogotsky in our Esri Canada Toronto office. In this demonstration, we're going to show how to use ArcGIS Online group-to-group sharing, creating layer views, and Arcade to share air pollution information between two different ArcGIS Online organizations in a secure and very efficient manner. So here is my climate change gallery organization that I have. I'm currently logged in with my identity, and I have some air pollution information that I was about to publish. Someone outside of my ArcGIS Online organization who has their own organization would like access to it. And I'm going to go through a process here of how I'm going to share that information with them. First thing I'm going to do is publish the layer in ArcGIS Pro. We can see the different facilities that we've been monitoring. We have air pollution information for many of them as well. Since I'm logged in with my identity, I can go to my layer in my table of contents and share this as a web layer. From here, I'll take the defaults of the metadata that I pre-populated on the layer. I'll share this with my organization so people in my organization have access to it, and I will publish it. So the next thing that I want to consider here is how am I going to make this available outside of my organization but keep this layer secure? Well, what I'll do is I'll invite that colleague to an organizational group of mine using his ArcGIS Online identity. But I'll also create a view which restricts the type of data that is going across to him. I don't want to have him full access to it, and it won't duplicate the data as well. He'll then be able to use it in a way that I'll feel confident that it's being used securely, and I'm not duplicating it. So the first thing I'm going to do is invite that user. I have to reach outside of my organization. I know his name for his identity. I'll find him, and then I'll send him the invitation. So in a couple moments, we'll see what Johnny will be able to do with that invitation. By now, we can see that my layer has been successfully published from ArcGIS Pro to my organization. So I can create my view at this point. If I go to my content, I'll see that I have that emission facilities layer. And what I'll be able to do now is take a look and create the view layer itself. So this doesn't duplicate the layer. It creates a view, which is just a representation of the layer that I have control over how it's depicted. So I'll create the view, and now I have to consider what fields or what features of what area of interest I would like for him to use. So we can see now that the view's been created, and I can create a view definition on it. So in the visualization here, I have access to all those fields of my freshly published layer. But what I'll do now is I don't want to give him information with the actual facility, just the emissions that are coming out of it. I'll set a view definition in this case. Instead of features, ordinary of interest, I'll restrict the fields that he has access to. So we'll give him the city name and also the emissions that we have for each of that we've been monitoring here from each of those facilities. I know that's basically the information that he's looking for. So that view definition now has just the city name and the emissions that are coming out of it. We'll notice here that in the settings, I do not have editing enabled. There's no way for him to modify this data. And the last thing that I'll have to do here is share it to that air pollution group. So I'll share it to just that group. That's what I'd like it to be a part of. And we'll see now that this is available as a layer in that group. So let's go over to my colleague's ArcGIS Online organization and see how he's going to interact with it now. So here's his ArcGIS Online organization that he uses to monitor environmental health. That air pollution information is sure going to be handy for him. He'll log in with that same identity that we were using, or that we sent the invitation to, and we'll see here that he has a notification which basically says you've been invited to join the air pollution group. So we can view that invitation. So that was sent by me. And now I can join this group, or now Johnny can join this group. So Johnny now has access to that air pollution group. He has access to that facilities view specifically and that other web map that we had available to us. So what can he do with this layer now? Well, he wants to make a web map of it, so we'll add it to the map viewer. Perhaps he's going to be using this to do further research and so on. So what I'd like to do is to actually symbolize this data and label it based on the total emissions for each of these facilities. Now, when we start looking at the data though, we're going to notice that we don't have the total emissions here, and he doesn't have access to actually modify this data set. So this is a really great opportunity to use arcade scripting to change the symbology and change the layers as well. So what we can do in our symbology tools is go into new expression, and from here we can use arcade scripting here and the different fields available to us to put together symbology and fields. So just to see how this works, I could add in here any field. We'll just put the city, do a test, and we can see that this is going to bring the value up of the city in that case. For the first feature in our data set, it's Calgary. But what we'll do instead is actually group all these together through an expression that we have already pre-built. So instead of putting it all through manually, which I did the first time to create the expression here, I'm going to take all of these emission fields together, add them up, and that will give us the total emission here for our symbology. So we can see that we have this. Always good to test it. We're getting back a result, so this looks promising. I'll then apply those results, and we can see here that this has changed the symbology, and it's using the smart mapping. So our bigger facilities that are emitting more emissions here, we can see their locations, their symbologies changed, and so on. So this is a really fantastic way that I've been able to provide the data as a view, but he can still use the data that's been provided to get exactly what he needs out of the data set, in this case the symbology. One last thing we'll do is we'll create some labels. Again, these will be labels that we build out through an expression. We can see the default values are going to the object ID, but through another expression, and I have that created as well. Essentially, we're just taking the amounts of the emissions, rounding it to 2 decimal places, and adding the value of tons onto it. So when I test this time, we'll see that we get this resulting string back, and those values are changing here based on the values of that facility. And I can use all of the default values that I'd like as well. Perhaps want to change the color, change the scale dependency for the visible range, and so on. So as I zoom in and out, I still have those fields with the labels. I get a little further out, I'm going to lose them as well. And as I zoom back in, I have the field values showing for the labels too. So this has been a demonstration of how we can use ArcGIS Online group-to-group sharing, layer views, and arcade expressions to really take data from one organization, share it with another in a secure and efficient way. Thank you.